Tonight we are going to cool a heated heart. If you have come to this quiet hour carrying anger or resentment, or the hot, restless residue of some wrong done to you, held tight in the chest and the jaw and the clenched hands, then tonight, gently, we will let it begin to cool and to soften and to loosen its grip so that the heart may grow quiet enough for sleep. For there are nights when what keeps us awake is not worry and not sadness, but heat, the low burning of an old anger, the churning of a resentment we cannot put down, the restless replaying of a wrong that has lodged in us like a coal that will not cool. There is a particular kind of sleeplessness that comes from a heated heart. You lie down, tired, longing for rest, and instead of quiet, you find the old anger rising, the scene replaying, the words you should have said, the injustice of it, the heat of it climbing again into the chest and the throat, and the body will not soften while the heart burns, for anger lives in the body as much as the mind, the tight jaw, the clenched hands, the shallow breath, the heat rising through the chest. And so you lie there, tired but inflamed, held awake by a fire that gives no light and warms no one, and only keeps you, hour after hour, from the rest you so badly need. Tonight, we let that fire begin to die down, not by force, and not by winning the old argument, and not by proving that we were right, but through the gentle Zen stories and quiet teachings that have helped heated hearts cool for a very long time. For the tradition understands anger well and treats it not with judgment, but with a deep and practical kindness, showing us again and again how to loosen its grip, how to soften the hardened heart, how to let the fire die down into cool and quiet ash so that we may rest. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. You do not need to know anything about Buddhism to rest here, and you do not need to remember a single word in the morning. There is nothing to study and nothing to solve. So take a soft, deep breath. Let your shoulders come down from wherever they have crept. Let the bed hold your full weight, and let us begin together, gently. The first thing to understand, and it is a kindness to understand it, is that anger is not a moral failing, not something to be ashamed of, not a sign that there is something wrong with you. Anger is a natural response of the heart to being hurt, to being wronged, to seeing something we love threatened. It arises on its own, as heat arises from fire, and there is no shame in its arising. The tradition does not ask us to never feel anger or to judge ourselves for feeling it. It asks something gentler and wiser, that we learn what to do with the anger once it has arisen, so that it does not burn us, so that we do not carry it, hardened, into every quiet hour and every attempt at rest. For anger, when it is held and fed and carried too long, becomes resentment, and resentment hardens the heart, and a hardened heart cannot rest and cannot love and cannot be at peace. So the teaching is not against anger, it is for our freedom from the burning of it. Let us explore a story about this. There was a man who came to an old teacher, unable to sleep. For weeks he had lain awake, night after night, his heart burning with anger at a wrong that had been done to him. He had been cheated, or betrayed, or insulted. The details matter less than the heat it left in him, and he could not put it down. Each night, the moment he lay down, the anger rose, and the scene replayed, and his heart pounded, and his jaw clenched, and sleep fled from him entirely. And he came to the old teacher, worn and hollow-eyed, and said, "I cannot sleep, for the anger in me will not rest, Tell me how to be rid of it. Tell me how to stop feeling this way." The old teacher listened and did not tell the man he was wrong to be angry. He did not lecture him or judge him or tell him simply to let it go, as though that were easy. Instead, he asked a gentle question. "This anger you carry," he said, "where do you feel it in your body?" The man was surprised by the question, but he considered it. "In my chest," he said, "and my throat, and my hands which clench. It is like a fire in my chest that will not go out." The old teacher nodded. "And this fire," he said, "whom does it burn?" The man began to say, "It burns the one who wronged me." But then he stopped, for he saw that this was not true. "The one who wronged me feels nothing," he admitted. "He sleeps soundly, no doubt. The fire is in my chest. It burns only me." The old teacher nodded again, gently. "So," he said, "the wrong was done once and is over. But the fire you carry burns you night after night in your own chest, while the one who wronged you feels nothing. This is the first thing to see, and it is the beginning of freedom, that the anger you hold harms you far more than the one you are angry at. It is your rest it steals, your heart it hardens, your peace it burns. And so to let it cool is not to forgive them a debt, or to say the wrong did not matter. It is simply to stop burning your own chest with a fire that touches no one but you. Let us stay with the man a moment, beginning to see that the fire he carried burned only himself. For the old teacher had given him the first and most important insight into anger held too long, that whatever the wrong, whatever the injustice, the fire of resentment we carry burns not the one who wronged us, but ourselves. The one we are angry at may be far away, may be long gone, may sleep soundly and think nothing of it. But we carry the fire in our own chest night after night, and it is we who are burned by it, we who cannot rest for it, we who are hardened by it. And to see this clearly is the beginning of a great freedom, for it turns the letting go from a gift we grudgingly give another into a mercy we give ourselves. And perhaps you carry such a fire too tonight. Some wrong done to you, some betrayal, some insult, some injustice, lodged in your chest as a burning coal that will not cool, keeping you awake, hardening your heart. And the first gentle thing to see, as the man saw, is that this fire burns only you. The one who wronged you does not feel it. It is your rest it steals, your chest it burns, your peace it troubles. And so to let it cool tonight is not to let anyone win, or to say the wrong did not matter. It is simply to stop burning your own heart with a fire that harms no one but yourself, to take your own hand, at last, out of the flame. So let us begin to let the fire cool now, gently. Whatever heat you carry in your chest tonight, whatever anger or resentment burns there, you might begin, softly, to let it cool. Not by force, not by fighting it, but by simply seeing that it burns only you, and choosing, for your own sake, to let it die down. Feel where the anger lives in your body tonight, the tight, aching jaw, the clenched hands, the held breath, the heat rising in the chest. And bring a slow, cool breath to each of these places, the way you would bring cool water to a burn. Let the jaw soften, let the hands open, let the chest, which holds the fire, begin to cool. There is nothing you must do tonight, but let the fire die down gently for your own sake, and no argument you must win, and no wrong you must right. Only let your own burned heart at last begin to cool and to soften and to rest. It is worth understanding too that anger so often carries a hidden pain beneath it. For anger is rarely the deepest feeling. It is usually a kind of armor over something more tender, some hurt, some fear, some grief that the anger rose up to protect. When we are wronged, beneath the heat of the anger, there is almost always a wound, the pain of being betrayed, the fear of being unsafe, the grief of being unloved or disrespected or unseen, and the anger rises, hot and hard, to armor that soft wound, to make us feel strong instead of hurt, to turn the tender pain into a hard heat. And so, when we are ready, gently, we may look beneath the anger to the wound it is protecting, and tend that wound with kindness, and find that as the wound is tended, the anger, no longer needed as armor, begins to soften and cool. But that is a deeper work, for another time perhaps. Tonight, it is enough simply to let the fire begin to cool, to loosen its grip on the body, to soften the heat we have carried into the dark. For anger held in the body is exhausting. It takes a constant clenching, a constant holding, a constant low burning that wears us down and keeps us from rest. And when we begin to let it cool, to unclench, to let the fire die down, there is a great relief, a great softening, as the held effort of the anger releases and the body, at last, may rest. So let us tend the body now, softly, cooling the places where the anger lives. Bring your gentle attention to the jaw, which so often clenches with anger, and let it soften and release, the teeth parting slightly, the whole jaw growing loose and easy and cool. Bring your attention to the hands, which clench into fists with anger, and let them open, the fingers uncurling, the palms softening, cool and open and at rest. Bring your attention to the chest, where the fire of anger burns, and bring a slow, cool breath to it, letting the heat drain slowly away, letting the burning ease, letting the chest grow cool and soft and open. And bring your attention to the shoulders, the neck, the brow, wherever the anger has tightened and heated the body, and let a cool, soft breath move through each place, releasing the held heat, cooling the burning, softening the hardness, until the whole body, which has held the fire so long, begins to cool and to soften and to rest. And let each breath be like a cool breath of evening air moving through you, carrying away the heat of the day's anger, cooling the burning chest, softening the clenched body until the fire that kept you awake dies down to gentle embers and then to cool grey ash, and the heart that burned so hot grows cool and quiet and still, cool enough, at last, for sleep. There is no fire you must tend tonight, no anger you must feed, no heat you must hold. Let it all cool. Let the body soften. Let the heart grow cool and quiet, and let that coolness carry you gently towards sleep. And there is a deep gentleness in letting the fire cool without judging yourself for having lit it. For sometimes we add, on top of the anger, a second layer of trouble. We grow angry at ourselves for being angry, ashamed of our own resentment, judging ourselves for not being more forgiving, more peaceful, more evolved. And this only adds more heat to the fire, more hardness to the heart. So let us set that judgment down too tonight. You are not wrong for feeling anger. It is a natural response of a hurt heart, and there is no shame in it. Meet your own anger then, not with judgment, but with the same gentleness you would offer a hurt friend. Of course you are angry. You were wronged. It makes sense that it burns. And let that gentleness toward your own anger be itself a cooling, a softening, so that the fire cools not through force or shame, but through kindness, the kindness of a heart that meets its own hurt and anger gently, and lets them gently cool. So let the fire cool now in that gentleness, without judgment, without shame. There is nothing wrong with you for having burned. You were hurt, and the anger rose to protect the hurt, as anger does. And now, gently, met with kindness rather than shame, the fire may cool, and the heart may soften, and the whole of you may rest, cooled not by force, but by gentleness, in the quiet dark. And if the anger rises again tomorrow, as old anger does, you need not be discouraged. You will simply bring the cool breath to it again, and let it cool again, gently, without judgment, as many times as it takes, until the coolness comes more easily than the heat. And feel how much cooler and lighter the body grows, breath by breath, as the fire dies down, and the old heat drains away into the dark. Let us rest here for a moment. If you carry a fire of anger in your chest tonight, you might begin to let it cool, not for anyone's sake but your own, seeing that it burns only you. Bring a slow, cool breath to the tight jaw, the clenched hands, the heated chest. Let the fire die down. Let your own heart cool and soften and begin to rest. When you are ready, we will go on together. The old teacher showed the man that his fire burned only himself. But there is a beautiful old story that shows something even deeper about anger, about where it truly comes from and how it dissolves when we see clearly. It is the story of an empty boat drifting on the morning mist. So let us turn now gently to that boat and to the anger that in the end has no one at all to land upon. For there is an old story told for many generations that reveals something surprising about the nature of anger, and it begins on a river in the mist of early morning. Imagine a man crossing a wide river in a small boat, rowing carefully through the morning fog, and as he rows, he feels a sudden jolt, a bump, as another boat collides with his own out of the mist, and the man, startled and annoyed, feels anger rise in him at once. Who is this careless fool, he thinks, who rows so blindly that he crashes into me? And he turns, ready to shout, ready to rebuke the careless rower, his anger hot and ready on his tongue. But when he turns to face the other boat, and the mist parts, he sees that the boat is empty. It is a small, empty boat, with no one in it at all, that has simply drifted loose from its moorings somewhere upriver and floated down on the current and bumped into his boat by nothing but the movement of the water. There is no careless rower after all. There is no one to blame. There is no one there at all, only an old boat, drifted loose, carried down by the blameless water. And the man's anger, which only a moment before had been so hot and so ready on his tongue, simply vanishes and dissolves, and has nowhere at all to go, for there is no one there to be angry at. He cannot very well shout at an empty boat, and so his anger, finding no one at all to land upon, simply falls away, and he rows on, and lets the empty boat drift past, and is not troubled by it at all. Let us stay with this a moment, gently, for it holds a very deep teaching. The bump was the same, whether the boat was empty or had someone in it. The jolt to the man's boat, the interruption, the small harm, was exactly the same in either case, but his anger was entirely different. When he imagined a careless rower behind the bump, someone to blame, someone who had wronged him, the anger rose hot and ready, and when he saw that the boat was empty, that there was no one to blame, no one behind the harm, the anger simply vanished, for it had nowhere to land. The harm did not cause the anger. The blame caused the anger, the story of someone who chose to wrong him. And when there was no one to blame, no one behind the harm, there was no anger at all. And here is the deep and freeing thing this old story shows us, that so often the people who bump into us, who wrong us, who cause us harm, are far more like empty boats than we realize, for everyone who has ever hurt us was carried, in that moment, by their own currents, their own causes, their own conditions, their own suffering and confusion and fear and history, drifting on forces they did not choose and often did not even understand, bumping into us not out of some careful, deliberate malice, but carried by the current of all that made them who they were. The one who was cruel to us was carried by their own pain. The one who wronged us was drifting on their own history, their own fear, their own confusion. They were, in a sense, empty boats, moved by currents deeper than their own will, and the person we imagine behind the wrong, the deliberate, malicious enemy who chose to harm us, is often more imagined than real. This does not mean the harm was not real, or that people are not responsible for what they do, but it means that the enemy we are so angry at, the deliberate wrongdoer we picture, is often far emptier than we think, far more carried by currents beyond their choosing, far more an empty boat than a careful rower aiming to harm us. And when we begin to see this, when we begin to see the empty boat behind the bump, the currents and causes and suffering behind the harm, our anger, like the man's, begins to have nowhere to land, begins to lose the imagined enemy it was aimed at, begins gently to dissolve. For anger needs a target, a someone to blame, a deliberate enemy who chose to harm us. And when we look closely, that target grows emptier and emptier, the deliberate enemy dissolving into a suffering, confused, drifting human being, carried by currents they did not choose, bumping into us not out of careful malice, but out of all that made them who they were. And as the target empties, as the deliberate enemy dissolves into an empty boat, the anger, finding no one solid to land upon, begins to soften and fall away, as the man's anger fell away when the mist parted and he saw the empty boat. So let us see the empty boat now, gently, behind whatever bump has angered us. Whatever wrong was done to you, whoever did it, you might begin to see, softly, the empty boat behind them, the currents that carried them, the suffering that shaped them, the fear and confusion and history that moved them, bumping into you not out of careful, chosen malice, but carried by forces deeper than their will. See the deliberate enemy begin to dissolve into a drifting, suffering human being, an empty boat carried by its own currents, and feel your anger, finding less and less to land upon, begin to soften, to lose its target, to fall away, as the man's anger fell away when he saw the boat was empty. There is no careful enemy to shout at tonight, only empty boats drifting on their currents, and you may let them drift past and let your anger fall away and row on gently toward rest. There is a deeper layer still to this old story, worth resting with in the quiet dark. For when we are angry at someone, we are almost always angry at a story we tell about them. The story that they knew what they were doing, that they meant to harm us, that they are the kind of person who would do such a thing, that they are, in short, a careful rower who chose to crash into us. And this story feels utterly true while we are inside it. But it is a story, and like all our stories, it is a guess, a construction, an imagining of what was in another's heart, which we can never truly know. And when we hold the story loosely, when we consider that we do not really know what was in their heart, that they may have been far more an empty boat than we imagined, far more carried by currents we cannot see. The story loosens, and the anger it fed begins to loosen with it. For we truly cannot know what carried another to the harm they did us. We cannot see their childhood, their fears, their wounds, the pressures of their moment, the long history of causes that made them who they were and moved them to do what they did. We see only the bump, the harm, the wrong. And then we construct, out of our own hurt, a story of a deliberate enemy who chose it. But the truth is almost always emptier and more human and more forgivable than the story. A suffering, frightened, confused human being, carried by currents they did not choose, doing harm as hurt people so often do, more empty boat than careful rower. And to hold this truth, even gently, even without excusing the harm, is to let the anger begin to lose its target, to soften, to fall away, as the man's anger fell away when the mist parted. So let us hold the story loosely now and see the empty boat. Whatever anger you carry, whatever enemy your mind has constructed, you might hold the story of them loosely tonight, remembering that you cannot truly know what was in their heart, that they may have been far more an empty boat than you imagined, carried by currents and causes and sufferings you cannot see. Let the careful, deliberate enemy of your story soften into a drifting, suffering, confused human being, an empty boat moved by forces beyond their choosing, and feel the anger, finding less and less of a solid enemy to land upon, begin to soften and lose its heat and fall away like the man's anger when he saw the boat was empty. And there is a great peace in this, the peace of no longer needing an enemy, no longer holding another as the deliberate author of our suffering, no longer carrying the hard, hot story of a careful wrongdoer. When the enemy dissolves into an empty boat, we are freed, not only from the anger, but from the whole hard, exhausting work of hating, of maintaining an enemy in the heart, of keeping the story of the wrong alive and burning. And into the space where the enemy was, a soft and cool peace flows, the peace of a heart with no one left to hate, no boat left to shout at, only the quiet river and the drifting empty boats and the cool morning mist. Rest in that peace now, the peace of a heart that has let its enemy dissolve into an empty boat, and let it carry you, cool and unburdened, gently toward sleep. And notice how much lighter the heart becomes when it no longer has to carry an enemy. For to hold someone as an enemy in the heart is a heavy and exhausting labor, though we rarely notice its weight. It takes a constant vigilance, a constant maintaining of the story of their wrongness, a constant readiness to be hurt again, a constant low heat of hostility that we carry with us everywhere, into every quiet hour, into the very bed where we long to rest. And when the enemy dissolves into an empty boat, all that heavy labor is set down. The vigilance can relax, the story can fade, the low heat can cool, and the heart, no longer carrying an enemy, grows light and soft and free. There is such relief in this, the relief of setting down the whole exhausting business of hating someone, of maintaining an enemy in the heart, of keeping the fire of hostility burning day and night. To let the enemy become an empty boat is to lay that whole burden down, and to rest, at last, in a heart with no enemy in it, light and cool and free. So let the enemy dissolve now, and feel the heart grow light. Let the story of the deliberate wrongdoer soften into the truth of a drifting, suffering human being, an empty boat carried by its own currents, and feel the heavy labor of holding an enemy begin to lift, the vigilance relaxing, the hostility cooling, the hard story fading. Feel the heart grow lighter as the enemy dissolves, freer as the burden of hating is set down, cooler as the fire of hostility dies for want of a target. There is no enemy in your heart tonight, only empty boats drifting on the quiet river, and you may let them drift and rest in a heart grown light and cool and free, and let that lightness carry you gently towards sleep, and let the breath be like the quiet current of that river now, carrying the empty boats past and away, carrying the old anger past and away, carrying you gently downstream towards sleep. There is nothing to shout at on the river tonight, no enemy to blame, only the cool mist and the drifting empty boats and the quiet water carrying you softly toward rest. It helps to remember too that we are, all of us, empty boats to one another more often than we know. For just as others bump into us carried by currents we cannot see, so we bump into others and cause our own small harms, carried by our own currents, our own tiredness, our own fears and distractions, rarely out of careful malice, most often simply drifting, doing harm without quite meaning to, as empty boats do. And when we remember that we too are empty boats, that we too have bumped into others and caused harm without careful intent, carried by forces we did not fully choose, we grow gentler toward the empty boats that bump into us, recognizing in them the same drifting, imperfect, carried humanity we know in ourselves. We are all empty boats together, drifting on our currents, bumping into one another in the mist, rarely meaning the harm we cause. And to see this, to feel our shared drifting humanity, softens the anger completely, for there is no enemy in a river full of empty boats, only fellow travellers, carried like us, drifting like us, doing their imperfect best in the mist. So let us rest now in that shared drifting, all of us empty boats together on the quiet river. Let the enemy dissolve, and the self who judges dissolve too, into a river full of drifting boats, all carried by their currents, all bumping into one another without careful malice, all doing their imperfect best in the mist. And feel the anger dissolve completely in that shared humanity, that fellowship of empty boats, and rest in the cool and quiet river. One drifting boat among many, no enemy anywhere, only the mist and the current and the gentle drifting towards sleep. For there is no one to be angry at on an empty river, and no enemy in the drifting mist, only the quiet water carrying you gently home. Let us rest here for a moment. Whatever wrong was done to you, you might see, gently, the empty boat behind it. The one who harmed you carried by their own currents, their own suffering and fear, bumping into you not out of careful malice, but out of all that made them who they were. Let the deliberate enemy dissolve into a drifting, suffering human being. Let your anger, finding less to land upon, begin to soften and fall away. When you are ready, we will go on together. We've seen that the enemy behind our anger is often more empty boat than careful rower, and that our anger softens when we see this. But even when we understand this, the fire may still burn, for anger, once lit, has its own heat. And so let us turn now to a simple and vivid image the tradition offers of what it costs us to go on holding that fire, the image of a burning coal held in the hand. For there is an image the tradition often offers, plain and vivid, about what it truly costs us to hold on to our anger. It is often pictured this way, that holding on to anger is like picking up a burning coal in your bare hand, with the intention of throwing it at the one who has wronged you. You mean to hurt them with it, to burn them as they burned you. But the coal is in your own hand, and long before you ever throw it, if you ever throw it at all, it is your own hand that is burned. You hold the burning coal, meaning it for another, and it sears your own flesh in your own hand, while the one you meant to burn stands far off, untouched. The anger you hold to hurt another burns, first and most, the one who holds it, you. This is a simple image, but it cuts to the very heart of what resentment does to us. We hold our anger as a weapon, meaning to hurt the one who wronged us, meaning to make them feel what they made us feel, but the weapon burns the hand that holds it. The resentment we carry to punish another punishes, first and most, ourselves. It burns our own chest, night after night. It hardens our own heart. It steals our own rest, sours our own days, troubles our own peace. And the one we hold it against, the one we mean to burn with it, most often feels nothing at all, sleeps soundly, thinks nothing of it, entirely untouched by the fire that scorches our own hand. Let us explore a story about this. There were two neighbors, farmers, whose lands lay side by side, and between them there arose a dispute over a boundary, a small strip of land, a matter of a few paces of earth. And in the heat of the dispute, one of the men felt himself deeply wronged, cheated of what was his, insulted by his neighbor's claim. And though the dispute was in the end settled and the strip of land divided, the wronged man could not let go of the anger. He nursed it, fed it, kept it burning in his chest. He would not speak to his neighbor. He glared at him across the fields. He lay awake at night, his heart pounding with the injustice of it, replaying the argument, imagining the things he would say, the ways he would make his neighbor pay. For years this anger burned in him, a coal he held always in his hand, meaning it for his neighbor. And what became of the two men? The neighbor, the one who had supposedly done the wrong, went on with his life, farming his land, raising his family, sleeping soundly at night, for he had, in truth, barely thought of the dispute since it was settled. To him it was an old and minor matter, long forgotten. But the wronged man, the one who held the coal, was consumed by it. The anger aged him. It soured his days and stole his nights. It hardened his heart until he became bitter and cold, difficult even to those he loved. It poisoned years of his life, years he could never get back, all spent burning with an anger that his neighbor did not even feel. He held the coal for years, meaning to burn his neighbor with it, and it was his own hand, his own chest, his own life that it burned to ash, while his neighbor slept soundly, untouched, hardly remembering the dispute at all. At last, an old friend, seeing what the anger had done to him, spoke to him gently. "You have held this anger for years," the friend said, "meaning to punish your neighbor with it. But look at your neighbor. He sleeps soundly. He farms his land. He has forgotten the whole matter. And look at yourself. You are aged by it, soured by it, sleepless and bitter and hard. Whom has the anger punished all these years? Your neighbor, who does not even feel it, or you, who have burned in it every day and every night? You have held a burning coal for years, meaning it for another, and it is only your own hand it has burned, only your own life it has consumed. Set it down, old friend, not for your neighbor's sake, but for your own. You have burned enough. Let us stay with the man a moment, holding his years-long coal, beginning to see that it had burned only himself. For his friend had shown him the true cost of the anger he held, not the punishment of his neighbor, who felt nothing, but the slow consuming of his own life, his own peace, his own heart. He had held the burning coal for years, and it had burned only his own hand, only his own chest, only his own precious and unrepeatable days, while the one he meant to burn slept soundly and forgot. And the setting down, when at last he understood, wasn't a mercy to his neighbor, who did not need it, but a mercy to himself, to his own long-burned hand, to his own life that had been consumed in the holding. And you too may be holding such a coal tonight, some anger you have carried, meaning it for one who wronged you, holding it as a weapon against them. And the gentle thing to see, as the man saw, is that the coal burns only your own hand. The one you hold it against most likely feels nothing, sleeps soundly, thinks little of it. It is your chest it burns, your rest it steals, your heart it hardens, your days it sours. And so to set it down tonight is not to let them off, or to say the wrong did not matter. It is simply to take your own burned hand out of the fire at last, to stop consuming your own precious life with a coal that touches no one but you. So let us set the coal down now, gently, for our own sake. Whatever anger you have held as a weapon against another, you might see, softly, that it has burned only your own hand, and choose, for your own sake, to set it down. Open the hand that has held the burning coal so long. Feel the fire leave it. Feel the seared hand begin, at last, to cool. Let the chest that has burned so long begin to cool. There is no one to throw the coal at tonight who would even feel it. There is only your own burned hand, holding it, and you may open that hand and let the coal fall, and let your own burned and weary hand rest and cool and be at peace at last in the quiet dark. There is a further freedom hidden in this image, worth resting with tonight. For once, we truly see that our anger burns only ourselves. The whole question of whether the other person deserves our forgiveness begins to fall away, and with it a great burden. We so often keep our anger burning because we feel that to let it go would be to let the wrongdoer off, to excuse them, to say that what they did was acceptable. And so we hold the coal, feeling that our burning is a kind of justice, a refusal to let the wrong be forgotten. But this is a deep confusion, for our burning is not justice. It changes nothing about the wrong. It reaches the wrongdoer not at all. It accomplishes nothing but the searing of our own hand. To hold the coal does not punish them. It punishes only us. And so we may set it down, not because they deserve to be forgiven, but simply because we do not deserve to go on burning, because our own hand has been seared long enough, because our own precious life is worth more than to be consumed in a fire that touches no one else. This reframing changes everything, for it takes the letting go out of the hands of the wrongdoer entirely. We do not have to wait for them to apologize, to deserve it, to earn our peace. We do not have to decide whether they are worthy of forgiveness. We have only to notice that we are burning, and to choose, for our own sake, to set the coal down and let our hand cool. The letting go becomes not a gift we grudgingly give them, dependent on their worthiness, but a mercy we give ourselves, entirely within our own power, needing nothing from them at all. And there is great freedom in this, the freedom of no longer being bound to the wrongdoer by our own anger, no longer waiting for them to release us, but releasing ourselves, setting down our own coal, cooling our own hand freely for our own sake, whether they ever deserve it or not. So let us set the coal down now. for our own sake, freely, needing nothing from the one who wronged us. You do not have to wait for them to apologize, or to deserve your peace, or to earn your forgiveness. You have only to see that you are burning, and to choose, for your own sake, to set the coal down and let your hand cool. Let the letting go be entirely your own, needing nothing from them, a mercy you give yourself. Open the hand. Let the coal fall. Let the seared hand cool. And feel the freedom of no longer being bound to the wrongdoer by your own anger, no longer waiting for their apology to release you, but releasing yourself freely for your own sake into the cool and quiet peace of a hand that holds no fire. And feel how the whole body cools as the coal is set down. Feel the heat drain from the chest. Feel the clenched hand, which held the coal so long, soften and open and cool. Feel the jaw release, the shoulders drop, the whole body cool and soften as the fire it held so long is finally set down. There is no coal in your hand now, and no fire in your chest. Only the cool and quiet dark, and the soft breath, and the deep relief of a hand that holds no fire, a heart that burns no longer, cooling and softening and settling gently toward sleep. And there is a great tenderness we may extend at last to the one who has borne the burning all this time, ourselves. For beneath the anger, the one who was wronged is a tender, hurt heart that was harmed, and then went on to be harmed further by its own held fire, burning night after night in the very chest that was already wounded. And that heart, more than anything, needs our kindness, needs to be released from the fire it has held so long, needs to be allowed, at last, to cool and to heal. So let us turn that kindness toward our own burned heart now, the heart that was wronged and then went on burning, and let us offer it, at last, the mercy of setting the fire down. You have burned long enough. You were hurt, and then you hurt yourself further with the holding, and now you may stop. You may set the coal down, and let your own wounded, weary heart cool and heal and rest. So let that mercy hold your own burned heart now. Place a cool, kind hand in your mind over your own chest, over the heart that has burned so long, and let it cool beneath your touch. Let it soften. Let it heal. You have carried the fire long enough. You have burned your own hand long enough. Tonight, you may set it all down and let your own wounded heart rest, cool and quiet and tended, in the kindness of your own hand, and let that tender coolness carry you gently towards sleep. And if the coal finds its way back into your hand tomorrow, as old anger does, you need only notice the burning again and open the hand again and let the coal fall again as many times as it takes until the setting down comes more easily than the holding, and your hand learns at last to stay open and cool. It is worth naming what the grudge does to us over time, for it is subtle and slow. A grudge held long enough does not stay a sharp, hot anger. It settles into something colder and heavier, a hardness, a bitterness, a permanent low resentment that becomes part of how we see the world and ourselves. The man in the story did not stay simply angry. He became bitter and hard and cold, and this hardness spread beyond the neighbor to color his whole life, his other relationships, his very way of being. For a grudge held long enough hardens the whole heart, not just the part aimed at the wrongdoer. The bitterness leaks out, coloring everything, until we become, without noticing, a harder and colder and more guarded person than we ever meant to be, all because of a coal we would not set down. And so to release the grudge is not only to cool one particular fire, it is to keep the whole heart from hardening, to stay soft and warm and open and alive, rather than letting one old wound slowly turn the whole heart to stone. So let us keep the heart soft tonight by setting the old coal down, for your own sake, for the sake of your whole heart, for the sake of staying soft and warm and open, rather than slowly hardening around an old wound. Let the grudge cool, let the coal fall, let the heart stay tender. You do not want to become hard and cold and bitter, letting one old wrong turn your whole heart to stone. So set the coal down and keep the heart soft, and let the warmth and openness of a tender heart be worth more to you than the cold justice of a grudge that only hardens you. Let your heart stay soft tonight, cooled and tender and open, and rest in that softness, and let it carry you gently towards sleep, and feel the softness spread through the whole body now, the opposite of the grudge's hardness. Where anger clenched and hardened, let there be softening. Where it heated, let there be cooling. Where it tightened, let there be release. Feel the jaw soften, the hands open, the chest cool, the whole body grow soft and warm and tender, unhardened, unclenched, at peace. And let that soft and tender and unhardened heart, kept soft by the setting down of the old coal, carry you gently and completely toward the deep rest of sleep. Let us rest here for a moment. If you have held a coal of anger as a weapon against another, you might see that it has burned only your own hand, and set it down now for your own sake. Open the hand, let the coal fall, let the seared hand and the burning chest begin at last to cool. There is no one to burn tonight but yourself, and you have burned enough. Let your own hand rest and cool and be at peace. When you are ready, we will go on together. We have seen that the coal of anger burns only the hand that holds it. But there is a deeper habit beneath the holding, the way we carry an old grudge long after the moment has passed, long after we could have set it down. And so let us turn now to that carrying, and to the man who would not put down his grudge. For there is a difference between anger, which flares up and if left alone fades, and a grudge, which we choose day after day to pick up and carry. Anger is a passing fire. It rises when we are hurt, burns for a while, and if we do not feed it, dies down on its own. But a grudge is something we do with the anger. We take it up and hold it and carry it long after the moment that lit it has passed, refusing to set it down, keeping it alive by our own carrying. And a grudge, carried long enough, becomes one of the heaviest burdens a human heart can bear, a stone we lug with us everywhere, into every day and every quiet night, weighing us down, wearing us out, and hardening us slowly around the shape of the old wrong. The tradition understands this carrying and treats it gently, for it knows how hard it can be to set a grudge down. We hold on to grudges for many reasons, because setting them down feels like admitting the wrong did not matter, or like letting the wrongdoer win, or like betraying our own hurt, because the grudge, cold and hard as it is, has become familiar, a part of how we see ourselves in the world. But whatever the reason, the grudge is a burden we carry, and it is we who are weighed down by it, we who are worn out by the carrying, we who grow hard and bent beneath its weight. And the teaching points always toward the possibility of setting it down, not for the wrongdoer's sake, but for our own, to lay down at last a burden we have carried far too long. Let us explore a story about this. There was a man who carried a grudge against his own brother. Long ago, in the dividing of their father's land, there had been a quarrel, a sense of unfairness, harsh words spoken on both sides, and a wound that never healed. And the man, feeling himself wronged, took up a grudge against his brother and carried it. He would not speak to him. He would not visit. When their paths crossed, he turned away, and he nursed the grudge, kept it alive, told himself the story of his brother's wrong again and again, refusing, year after year, to set it down. And the grudge became a heavy stone that he carried always, a coldness in his chest, a hardness in his heart, a weight that bent him a little more with every passing year. And the years passed. The two brothers grew old, each on his own land, side by side but never speaking, the grudge standing between them like a wall. And all that time the man carried his heavy stone, and it wore him down and hardened him and stole the warmth from his days. He missed his brother's whole life, his brother's children growing, his brother's joys and sorrows, the simple companionship they might have had in their old age. All of it lost, traded away for the carrying of a grudge, a stone he would not set down, a wall he would not take down, an old wrong he would not release. And then, near the very end of his life, the man fell ill and lay in his bed and knew that his time was short. And lying there, looking back over his long life, he saw, at last, the terrible cost of the grudge he had carried. He saw the years lost, the brother missed, the warmth traded for coldness, the whole long weight of a stone he need never have carried. And with what strength he had left, he sent for his brother. And his brother came, an old man now himself, and stood beside the bed. And the two of them, who had not spoken in decades, looked at one another, and the grudge, in that moment, simply fell away, dissolved, revealed for the small and heavy and needless thing it had always been. "Forgive me," said the man, "for carrying this so long." And his brother, weeping, said, "Forgive me too." And in the little time that remained, the two brothers were brothers again, warm and reconciled, and the man, who had carried the grudge for a lifetime, set it down at last and died some while later, with a heart no longer bent beneath its weight, but soft and warm and at peace, wishing only that he had set it down so much sooner. Let us stay with the man a moment, the grudge set down at last, his heart soft and warm and reconciled. For his story shows us, with great tenderness, the true cost of a grudge carried too long, not the punishment of the one we hold it against, but the slow loss of our own warmth, our own years, our own precious and unrepeatable life, traded away for the carrying of a stone we need never have carried. He carried the grudge for a lifetime, and it cost him a brother, and it hardened his heart, and it stole the warmth from his days, and in the end he set it down in an instant, and wished only that he had set it down so much sooner. For the grudge was never worth its weight. It never is. And perhaps you carry such a grudge too, some old wrong you have held for years, some wall you have kept standing, some stone you have carried and will not set down. And the gentle question the man's story asks is this: is it worth its weight? Is the grudge worth the warmth it costs you, the peace it steals, the hardness it works into your heart, the years it wears away? For the wrongdoer, most likely, does not feel it. It is you who carry the stone, you who are bent beneath it, you who lose the warmth and the years and the peace. And you may set it down, not for their sake, but for your own, not tomorrow, not at the end of your life when it is nearly too late, but now, tonight, in the quiet dark, laying down at last a burden you have carried far too long. So let us set the grudge down now, gently, for our own sake. Whatever old grudge you carry, whatever stone you have lugged with you for years, you might see, softly, the weight of it, the cost of it, and choose, at last, to set it down. You do not have to wait until the end of your life, until it is nearly too late, to lay it down. You may lay it down now, tonight, feeling the great weight lift from your chest, the great burden roll from your shoulders, the great stone fall from your hands at last. Feel yourself stand straighter as the weight comes off. Feel the warmth return to the chest that the grudge had chilled. Feel the heart, no longer bent beneath the stone, soften and warm and open, at last, in the deep relief of a burden finally set down. There is no stone you must carry into sleep tonight. Set it down and rest, unburdened, warm and free. It is worth being honest about why we hold on to grudges, for the reasons are subtle, and seeing them clearly helps us loosen our grip. Often, beneath the grudge, is a fear that to let it go would be to say the wrong did not matter, to dishonor our own hurt, to let the wrongdoer off unpunished. And so, we keep the grudge as a kind of monument to the wrong, a way of insisting that it mattered, that it was real, that we were hurt. But a grudge is a poor monument, for it honors nothing. It only weighs us down and hardens us and costs us our warmth and our years. There are better ways to honor our own hurt than to carry a stone that crushes us. We may acknowledge the wrong and grieve it and learn from it, and even hold clear boundaries against its repetition, all without carrying the crushing stone of a grudge. To set the grudge down is not to say the wrong did not matter. It is only to stop letting it crush us, to honor our own hurt not by carrying a stone, but by freeing ourselves from its weight. And there is a deep tenderness in recognizing that the one most harmed by our grudge is the one we most wish to protect, our own tender, hurt heart. For the grudge was taken up to defend that heart, to guard the hurt, to insist the wrong be taken seriously. But the grudge does not protect the heart. It crushes it, weighing it down, hardening it, stealing its warmth. And so, to set the grudge down is the truest way to protect the tender heart it was meant to guard, to free it at last from the crushing stone, to let it be soft and warm and whole again, rather than bent and hardened beneath a burden it was never meant to carry. Set the grudge down then, for the sake of the very heart it was meant to protect, and let that heart be free. So let us free the tender heart now, by setting the grudge down for its sake. Feel the great stone you have carried, the weight of the old grudge, and understand that it has crushed the very heart it was meant to guard, and choose, for that heart's sake, to set it down. Feel the weight lift, the stone roll away, the crushed heart begin to rise, and soften and warm, freed at last from the burden it was never meant to carry. Feel your whole body lighten as the stone comes off, standing straighter, breathing deeper, the chest opening where the grudge had bound it. There is no stone you must carry into sleep tonight, and no monument you must keep. Let the grudge fall from your hands, and let your tender heart, freed at last, soften and warm and rest in the quiet dark. And let the breath deepen now in that freedom, each breath a little fuller for the stone being gone, each breath drawing the warmth back into the heart the grudge had chilled. Let the unburdened body sink into the bed, light and warm and free, and let the freed and softening heart no longer bent beneath its stone, carry you gently down toward the deep rest of sleep. And notice how the man's story, sad as it is, holds a hopeful truth, that a grudge can be set down at any moment, however long it has been carried. He carried his for a lifetime and set it down in an instant at the very end. And if he could set down a lifetime's grudge in a single moment, then so can you, tonight, set down whatever you have carried, however long you have carried it. The weight of a grudge does not grow harder to set down with the years. It only grows heavier to carry. But the setting down itself is always just as simple, always just one choice away, always possible in a single moment, no matter how long the stone has been carried. You do not need years to set it down, or elaborate preparation, or the wrongdoer's apology, or the end of your life drawing near. You need only, in a single moment, choose to open your hands and let the stone fall and stand up straight, unburdened at last. And that moment is available to you now, tonight, exactly as it was available to the man all those years he carried it, and finally seized only at the end. Do not wait until the end. Set it down now, in this moment, while there is still so much warmth and life to enjoy unburdened. So let us seize that moment now and set the stone down, while there is still so much life to live unburdened by it. You do not have to carry it one more night. You do not have to wait for the end. In this single moment tonight, you may simply open your hands and let the old grudge fall and stand up straight and feel the great weight lift and the warmth return and the years ahead open up, unburdened before you. Set it down now in this one simple moment and rest at last in the deep relief of a heart no longer carrying a stone. There is a quiet grief that often lives beneath a long grudge, and it is worth touching gently, for tending it helps the grudge release. For beneath the hardness of the grudge is usually a soft sorrow. Sorrow for the relationship that was lost, for the love that was broken, for the warmth that turned to coldness. The man who would not speak to his brother was not only angry. Beneath the anger, grieved the brother he had lost, the companionship they might have had, the love that had turned to a wall. And often, when we let ourselves feel that grief beneath the grudge, the sorrow for what was lost, the grudge softens, for we touch the tender loss. It was armoring, and the heart, feeling its true grief, no longer needs the hard armor of the grudge. So we might let ourselves feel, gently, the grief beneath our own grudge tonight, the sorrow for what was lost, the love that broke, the warmth that turned cold. And in feeling that soft sorrow, we may find the grudge loosening, the hardness softening into grief, and the grief itself felt and honored, beginning gently to heal. So let us feel that soft grief now beneath the hard grudge, and let it help the grudge release. Let yourself touch, gently, the sorrow beneath the anger, the relationship lost, the love broken, the warmth turned cold, and let that soft sorrow be felt and honored and held with kindness, and feel how, as the grief is felt, the hard grudge softens, the armor loosens, and the heart, touching its true tender loss, no longer needs to hold the stone. Let the grudge soften into grief, and the grief be held gently, and rest in that tender softening, and let it carry you, softened and grieving and gently healing, toward sleep. Let us rest here for a moment. If you have carried an old grudge, a heavy stone for years, you might set it down now, for your own sake, seeing its weight and its cost, not waiting until it is nearly too late. Feel the great weight lift from your chest, the stone fall from your hands, the warmth return to your heart. Rest, unburdened and warm, no longer bent beneath the weight of an old wrong. When you are ready, we will go on together. We have set down the grudge, the heavy stone we carried far too long. But to understand how anger comes and goes, and why it need not be carried at all, it helps to see its true nature, that it is not solid and permanent, but passing, like weather across the sky. So let us turn now gently to that weather, and to the anger that arises and passes if we only let it. For anger, when we look at it closely, is not the solid, permanent thing it feels like in the moment. It feels, when it burns, as though it will last forever, as though it is simply how things are now, a permanent state we are stuck in. But watch anger closely over time, and you will see that it is nothing of the sort. It arises and it burns for a while, and then, if only we do not feed it, it fades and softens and passes and is gone, replaced in time by some other state, some other passing weather of the heart. Anger is impermanent, like all our feelings, like all things. It is only weather, passing across the wide sky of the mind, and no more permanent than a storm, which rises and rages, and then blows itself out and passes, always leaving the sky clear again behind it. The teaching of impermanence is one of the deepest in all the tradition, and it applies to anger as it applies to everything, that nothing lasts, that all things arise and pass, that no state of mind, however intense, is permanent. And there is great comfort in this for the heated heart. For if anger were permanent, if it truly were the fixed and lasting state it feels like in the moment, then to be angry would be a kind of prison with no exit. But anger is not permanent. It is weather. It arises and passes. And even the fiercest anger, if we do not feed it, will blow itself out and pass and leave the clear sky of the mind behind it, as the fiercest storm passes and leaves the clear sky behind. Let us explore a story about this. There was a young monk who was troubled by his anger, for he was by nature quick to anger, and his sudden rages shamed him, and he feared he would never be free of them. And he came to an old teacher and said, "I am too full of anger. It rises in me suddenly and fiercely, and I cannot be rid of it. I fear it is simply my nature, and that I will burn with it all my life." And the old teacher took him outside, where a summer storm was gathering, dark clouds rolling in, and said, "Watch." And they sat together as the storm broke, the wind rising, the rain lashing down, the thunder rolling, the whole sky dark and raging. And the old teacher said nothing, only watched, and after a while the storm began to pass. The wind died down, the rain softened and stopped, the clouds thinned and parted, and in time the sky was clear again, washed clean, blue and calm and bright, as though the storm had never been. "Tell me," said the old teacher, "that storm, was it the sky?" The young monk considered. "No," he said. "The storm passed across the sky, but it was not the sky. The sky was there before the storm, and during it and after, and the sky remains clear and calm, now that the storm has passed." "Just so," said the teacher, "is your anger. Your anger is the storm. It rises and rages, and it feels while it rages, as though it is everything, as though it will never end. But it is not you. It is weather passing across you. You are the sky, in which the storm of anger rises and rages, and in time passes, leaving you clear and calm again, as you always were beneath it. You are not an angry person, doomed to burn forever. You are the clear sky, across which the storm of anger sometimes passes, and always, in time, passes on, leaving you clear and calm again. Do not fear the storm. Do not believe it is you, or that it will last forever. Watch it as we watch this one, and know that it will pass, and that you are the clear sky that remains. Let us stay with the young monk a moment, watching the storm pass and the clear sky return, understanding that his anger was weather and not his nature. For the old teacher had freed him from the deepest fear about anger, that it is permanent, that it is who we are, that we are doomed to burn with it forever. But anger is not permanent, and it is not who we are. It is weather, a storm that rises and rages and in time always passes, leaving the clear sky of our true nature behind it, calm and washed clean, as it always is beneath the passing weather. We are not the storm of anger. We are the clear sky across which it passes, and no storm, however fierce, lasts forever. All of them pass and leave the clear sky behind. And this is a deep comfort for the heated heart tonight. Whatever anger burns in you now, however permanent it feels, however much it seems it will never end, it is weather and it will pass. It is a storm rising and raging across the sky of your mind, and like all storms, it will, in time, blow itself out and pass and leave the clear sky behind it. You are not doomed to burn forever. You are not an angry person by some fixed and permanent nature. You are the wide, clear sky across which this storm of anger is passing, and it will pass as every storm passes and leave you clear and calm again, washed clean, as you always are beneath the weather. So you need not fear the anger or fight it or believe it will last. You need only watch it, as the monk watched the storm and let it pass, knowing that you are the sky, and the sky remains. So let us watch the storm of anger pass now, gently, knowing we are the sky that remains. Whatever anger burns in you tonight, you might watch it, softly, the way the monk watched the summer storm, not fighting it, not feeding it, not believing it is you or that it will last, but simply watching it rise and rage and in time begin to pass. Let the wind of it die down. Let the rain of it soften. Let the dark clouds thin and part, and feel the clear sky of your true nature emerging behind it, calm and washed clean, as it always is beneath the passing weather. You are not the storm. You are the clear sky, and the storm is passing, as all storms pass, leaving you clear and calm and quiet again. And you may rest in that clear sky now, watching the last of the storm drift away, and let the calm and clear sky of your true nature carry you gently towards sleep. There is a particular freedom in learning simply to watch our anger, rather than being swept up into it. For usually, when anger rises, we are not watching it. We are it, swept up into the storm, carried along by it, becoming the anger entirely, so that there is no distance between us and it, no clear sky from which to watch the storm. But we can learn gently to step back, to become the watcher rather than the storm, to observe the anger rising and raging and passing without being swept up into it, from the calm vantage of the clear sky. And when we watch the anger this way, from the sky rather than from within the storm, it loses much of its power over us. For the watcher is not angry, the watcher is calm and clear and steady, observing the storm from above, untouched by it, waiting for it to pass. To become the watcher, the sky, is to find a calm place to stand while the storm of anger blows itself out, a place from which we can see that the storm is passing, that it is not us, that we are the clear sky that remains. So you might practice tonight simply watching your anger from the clear sky, rather than being swept up into the storm. When the anger rises, instead of becoming it, you might step back gently and watch it, naming it softly. There is anger rising like a storm across the sky, and from that calm vantage, the clear sky watching the passing storm, you might observe the anger rise and rage, and in time begin to pass, without being swept up into it, without becoming it, resting in the calm, clear sky that watches and remains, and feel how from the sky the storm has less power, how, as the watcher, you are calm, even as the anger rages, how, being the sky, you can wait patiently for the storm to pass, knowing that it will, as all storms do, and rest now as that clear sky, watching the last of the storm drift away. Let the anger be weather passing across you, and rest as the vast clear sky in which it passes, calm and steady and untouched. Feel the storm losing its power as you watch it from the sky, the wind dying, the clouds thinning, the clear, calm sky of your true nature spreading wide and open behind the passing weather. You are the sky, not the storm, and the storm is passing, and the clear, calm, open sky of your true nature remains and holds you and carries you, calm and clear and untouched by any passing weather, gently down towards sleep. And let the breath be like the deep, slow calm that comes after a storm has passed. The air washed clean, the sky clear, the world quiet and still. Let each slow breath deepen that after-storm calm, that washed clean stillness, and let the clear and quiet sky of your rested mind carry you, calm and cool and clear, toward the deep peace of sleep. And there is a great patience that grows from truly understanding this impermanence, the patience of one who knows that the storm will pass. For when we do not know that anger passes, we panic in the midst of it, believing we are stuck, believing we must do something, act on the anger, discharge it, or be trapped in it forever. But when we know, deep down, that anger is weather, that it always passes, that we need only wait and it will blow itself out, then we can be patient in the midst of it, riding it out calmly, doing nothing hasty, saying nothing we would regret, simply waiting, as the ferryman waits out the storm for the anger to pass on its own, as it always does. And this patience saves us from so much, from the hasty words spoken in anger that we later regret, from the actions taken in the heat that cause new harm, from the whole cascade of trouble that comes from acting on a storm rather than waiting for it to pass. To know that anger passes is to be able to wait it out, patiently, calmly, doing nothing until the sky is clear again. So let us rest in that patience now, the patience of one who knows the storm will pass. Whatever anger is in you tonight, you need do nothing about it, say nothing, act on nothing. You need only wait patiently, calmly for it to pass, as you know it will. There is no hasty word you must speak tonight, no action you must take, no storm you must discharge. There is only the patient waiting, the calm riding out, the quiet knowledge that the storm is passing and the clear sky will return. Rest in that patience, that calm certainty that the weather will change, and let the storm pass in its own time while you wait, calm and patient and still, in the clear sky that always remains, and let that patient calm carry you gently toward sleep. And notice that even now, as you rest, the anger you came in with has likely already begun to shift, to soften, to change, proving its own impermanence. For no feeling stays exactly the same. Even in the course of this quiet hour, the heat that burned when you lay down has surely already begun to change, to cool a little, to shift, as all weather shifts. And this is the living proof of impermanence, happening in you even now. that the anger is already not quite what it was, already passing, already changing, already, in its own slow way, moving on. You need only notice this and trust it, and let the natural passing of the anger continue as it is already doing in its own time, without your effort. The storm is already beginning to move on. The weather is already changing. You need only let it and rest, and trust the deep impermanence that is already, even now, carrying the anger away. So let us trust that passing now, already underway, and rest as the weather changes on its own. The anger is already shifting, already cooling, already beginning to move on, as all weather does. You need do nothing to make it pass. It is already passing in its own time, by its own nature. Simply rest and let it pass, and trust the deep impermanence that is already carrying it away, and feel the clear sky spreading wider behind the moving storm, and rest in that clearing sky, and let the changing weather carry you, calm and trusting, towards sleep. So let us rest now in the clear sky that always remains, however the weather passes across it. Whatever storm of anger has raged tonight, watch it drift on, and rest as the wide, calm, clear sky that holds all weather and is troubled by none of it, spreading open and quiet behind the moving clouds. Let us rest here for a moment. Whatever anger burns in you tonight, you might watch it as the monk watched the summer storm, knowing it is weather and not your nature, a storm that rises and rages and in time always passes. You are not the storm, you are the clear sky across which it passes. Let it pass now and feel the clear sky return, calm and washed clean. Rest in that clear sky. When you are ready, we will go on together. We have seen that anger is weather, a storm that passes if we let it. But storms of anger sometimes seem not to pass, to rage on, and this is because we are, without realizing, feeding them. So let us turn now, gently, to how we keep the fire of anger burning without meaning to, and to how it dies down, all on its own, the moment we stop feeding it, the fire that needs fuel to live. For if anger is a storm that naturally passes, or a fire that naturally dies down, why does it sometimes seem to rage on, night after night, refusing to fade? The answer is gentle and freeing. It is because we are feeding it. Anger, left alone, dies down, as a fire left alone burns out. But we rarely leave it alone. We feed it again and again, without quite realizing we are doing so. And each time we feed it, it flares up hot again, and so it burns on, not because it is permanent, but because we keep adding fuel to it, keeping it alive by our own hand. And how do we feed the fire of anger? We feed it by retelling the story. Each time we go over the wrong again in our minds, rehearse the argument, remind ourselves of the injustice, imagine what we would say, replay the scene. We throw another log on the fire, and it flares up hot once more. The wrong itself happened once, and is over. But we keep it burning by retelling it, again and again, in the theatre of the mind, each retelling a fresh log on the fire, keeping the flames alive long after the event that lit them has passed. And this is why the anger rages on and on through the night, not because it is permanent, but because we lie there feeding it, retelling the story, throwing log after log onto a fire that would have died down long ago if only we had stopped feeding it. Let us explore a story about this. There was a woman who could not let go of an anger, and it burned in her for months, keeping her awake, souring her days, and she went to a wise old woman and said, "This anger will not leave me. I have tried to let it go, but it burns on, and I can't put it out." And the old woman asked her, "Tell me, how often do you think of the wrong that was done to you?" And the woman said, "Oh, constantly. Many times a day. Each night as I lie down, I go over it again. The whole scene. What they did, what they said, how unfair it was, what I should have said, how I would answer them now. I cannot stop thinking of it." And the old woman nodded gently and said, "There is your answer. You ask why the fire will not go out, and yet you throw a fresh log on it many times a day. Each time you retell the story of the wrong, you feed the fire, and it flares up hot again. The fire is not permanent. It would die down on its own if you left it alone. But you do not leave it alone. You feed it again and again with a retelling, and so it burns on and on. If you wish the fire to die down, you must stop feeding it. You must stop retelling the story, not by forcing the thoughts away, but by gently declining each time the mind reaches for the old story, to tell it one more time. Let the fire go unfed, and it will die down on its own, as all fires do." And the woman began, slowly, to do this. Each time the mind reached for the old story, ready to retell the wrong, she gently declined. "Not now," she would say to herself. "I will not feed this tonight." And she would turn, instead, to her breath, to the quiet dark, to anything but the retelling. And at first, the mind reached for the story again and again, and she had to decline again and again. But each time she did not feed the fire, it flared a little less. And over the days and weeks, the fire, no longer fed, began to die down, from a blaze to embers, from embers to cool grey ash, until the anger that had burned in her for months, no longer fed by the retelling, finally went out, and she could rest. Let us stay with the woman a moment, learning to stop feeding the fire, watching it slowly die down for want of fuel. For the old woman had shown her the simple mechanism by which anger burns on and on, not its permanence, but our feeding of it, log after log of retelling thrown onto flames that would otherwise die down. And she had shown her the simple cure, to stop feeding the fire, to gently decline, each time the mind reaches for the old story, to tell it one more time, and to let the fire, unfed, die down on its own, as all fires do. And you too may be feeding a fire tonight, retelling some old wrong, throwing log after log onto flames that would otherwise die down. And the gentle cure is the same, not to force the anger away, not to fight the fire, but simply to stop feeding it, to decline gently each time the mind reaches for the old story, to tell it one more time. When the mind reaches tonight for the old wrong, ready to retell it, replay it, rehearse it once more, you might gently decline. "Not now," you might say. "I will not feed this fire tonight," and turn instead to the breath, to the cool dark, to anything but the retelling, and the fire, no longer fed, will begin to die down, from a blaze to embers, from embers to cool grey ash, dying down on its own, as all fires do, the moment you stop feeding them. So let us stop feeding the fire now, gently, and let it die down. Whatever old wrong your mind has been retelling tonight, throwing log after log onto the fire of your anger, you might gently decline to tell it one more time. "Not now. I will not feed this fire tonight," and turn instead to the cool breath, to the quiet dark, letting the story go untold, the fire go unfed, and feel the fire no longer fed begin to die down, the flames sinking, the heat easing, the blaze becoming embers, the embers becoming cool grey ash. There is no story you must tell tonight, no wrong you must rehearse, no fire you must feed. Let the story go untold, Let the fire go unfed and feel it die down gently into cool and quiet ash, and let the cooling fire carry you softly towards sleep. It helps to notice how the mind justifies the retelling, dressing it up as something other than the feeding of a fire. The mind will say, I am not feeding my anger. I am simply understanding what happened. I am processing it. I am figuring out what I should have done, what I will say, how I will protect myself next time. And there is a place in the daylight with a clear mind for genuine reflection, for learning, for setting boundaries. But the midnight retelling, the compulsive going over of the wrong again and again as we lie in the dark, is rarely genuine understanding. It is the feeding of a fire, and it understands nothing new, resolves nothing, protects nothing. It only keeps the flames alive and steals our rest. And we may learn to tell the difference, the genuine reflection that happens once in the daylight and comes to an end, and the compulsive retelling that happens over and over in the dark and never ends and only feeds the fire. The one is useful, the other only burns us, and at night, in the dark, it is almost always the second, the feeding, that the mind is doing, however it dresses it up. So you might recognize the retelling for what it is tonight and gently decline it. When the mind offers to go over the wrong one more time, dressing it up as understanding, as processing, as figuring things out, you might see through the disguise and recognize the feeding of the fire and gently decline. There is nothing to understand tonight that a night's rest will not help you understand better tomorrow. There is nothing to figure out in the dark that the daylight will not figure out more clearly. The night is not for processing, it is for rest, and so you may set the retelling down, whatever costume it wears, and let the fire go unfed, and turn to the cool breath and the quiet dark, and rest. So let us set the retelling down now, in whatever guise it comes, and let the fire die. Whatever the mind offers to go over one more time tonight, you might gently decline, recognizing the feeding of the fire beneath the disguise. Not now. There is nothing to understand tonight but rest, and turn instead to the cool breath, and let the fire, no longer fed, die down. Feel the flames sink, the heat ease, the blaze become embers, the embers become cool grey ash, and feel the deep quiet that comes when the fire is out at last, the cool and settled peace of a hearth grown cold, and rest in that cool quiet, and let it carry you gently towards sleep, and let the breath be cool and slow now, like the quiet air over a fire that has finally gone out, cool and still and settled. Let each cool, slow breath carry you further from the old heat, deeper into the cool and quiet dark, until the last warmth of the old anger has faded entirely, and there is only the cool, still peace of a heart no longer burning, drifting gently down towards sleep. And there is a great and simple peace in a hearth grown cold, an image worth resting in as we let the fire die. Think of a fireplace at the very end of the night, when the fire that blazed all evening has died down to nothing, the last embers gone grey and cool, the hearth quiet and settled, the room cooling gently toward the deep rest of the small hours. There is a peace in that cold hearth that the blazing fire never had, the peace of heat spent, of energy settled, of a long day's fire finally out, and the deep quiet of the night arriving. And your own heart, when the fire of anger is finally out, has just this peace, the deep, settled, cool peace of a hearth grown cold, of heat spent, of a long anger finally out, and the deep quiet of rest arriving at last. So let your heart become that cold and peaceful heart tonight, the fire out, the embers grey and cool, the deep settled quiet of the small hours arriving, and rest in that cool and settled peace, the peace of a fire finally out and a heart finally cool. So let the last embers cool now, and rest in the deep peace of the cold hearth. Feel the last of the heat leave the chest, the last of the anger settle into cool grey ash, the deep quiet of the extinguished fire spreading through you. There is no fire left to tend tonight, no heat left to hold, no anger left to feed. Only the cool, settled, quiet peace of a hearth grown cold, and the deep rest of the small hours, and the gentle drift towards sleep. Rest in that cool quiet, that spent and settled peace, and let it carry you, cool and quiet and at peace, gently down into the deep rest of sleep. And if the fire flares up again tomorrow, fed by some new retelling, you need not despair. You will simply decline to feed it again, and let it die down again, as many times as it takes, until the declining becomes a habit, and the fire, less and less fed, burns lower and lower, until one day you find it has gone out entirely, and you can barely remember the heat it once held. For a fire that is never fed cannot burn, and a story that is never retold cannot keep the anger alive. And a heart that stops feeding its old fires grows in time cool and quiet and free. It is worth understanding too why the mind clings so to the retelling, why it reaches again and again to feed the fire. Often beneath the compulsive retelling is a wish to make the wrong come out differently, to win the argument at last, to find the perfect answer, to see justice done, at least in the theatre of the mind. And so we replay the scene, trying to change its ending, to say the thing that would finally make it right, to imagine the wrongdoer finally understanding, apologizing, admitting they were wrong. But the scene never changes, however many times we replay it. The past is fixed, and no amount of retelling can alter it, and so the retelling never satisfies, never resolves, never brings the justice or the perfect answer it seeks. It only feeds the fire and burns us and leaves the past exactly as it was. And when we see this, that the retelling can never change what happened, never win the argument, never bring the justice we seek, we may finally let it go, not because we have won, but because we see that there is no winning to be had in the retelling, only burning. So you might let the retelling go tonight, seeing that it can never change the past or bring the justice it seeks. The scene will not come out differently, however many times you replay it. The argument will not be won in the theatre of the mind. The wrongdoer will not, in your imagining, finally understand and apologize. And even if they did, it would change nothing of what was. So let the replaying go, not because you have won, but because there is nothing to win in it, only fire to feed and heat to bear. Let the past be as it was, unchangeable, finished, and stop trying to change it through the retelling, and let the fire, no longer fed by that hopeless effort, die down at last. So let us set that hopeless retelling down now, and let the fire die. The past will not change tonight, however you replay it. There is no justice to win in the dark, no argument to finally settle, no ending to rewrite. So let it be as it was, finished and unchangeable, and stop feeding the fire with a hopeless effort to change it, and turn instead to the cool breath and the quiet dark, and let the fire die down for want of that fuel, into cool grey ash, and rest in the cool quiet that comes when the hopeless effort is finally set down, and let it carry you gently towards sleep. Let us rest here for a moment. If you have been feeding the fire of anger tonight, retelling some old wrong again and again, you might gently decline to tell it one more time. Not now. I will not feed this fire tonight. Turn, instead, to the cool breath and the quiet dark, and feel the fire, no longer fed, begin to die down, from blaze to embers to cool grey ash. Let the story go untold, the fire go unfed, and rest as it cools. When you are ready, we will go on together. We have learned to stop feeding the fire and to let it die down for want of fuel. But there is a quality of heart that, when we cultivate it, cools the fire of anger even as it arises, a deep and steady coolness that the tradition prizes greatly. It is patience, the cool water of a heart that does not catch fire. So let us turn now, gently, to that cool water. There is a word the old traditions return to again and again when they speak of anger, and it is not a grand or difficult word. It is patience. And though it sounds at first like a small and ordinary virtue, the kind of thing we are told as children when we are made to wait, it is, in truth, one of the deepest and most quietly powerful qualities a human heart can hold. For patience is the cool water that does not catch fire. It is the quality of a heart that can be touched by the spark of provocation and simply not ignite, the way wet wood, however many sparks fall upon it, will not take flame, and where the practices we have walked through so far have taught us to let a fire die down once it is already burning. Patience works earlier, deeper, at the very root, cooling the heart so thoroughly that the spark, when it comes, finds nothing dry to catch. Let us understand what patience truly is, for it is often misunderstood, and the misunderstanding makes it seem far less appealing than it is. Patience is not the gritting of teeth. It is not the swallowing of anger, the pressing down of a fire that still burns beneath, the pretending to be calm while the heat rages inside. That is not patience, that is suppression, and it costs us dearly, for the fire pressed down does not go out. It only burns in secret, in the body, in the tight jaw and the clenched stomach and the sleepless night. True patience is something altogether different and altogether cooler. It is a heart so wide, so unhurried, so at ease, that the provocation, when it comes, simply does not disturb it. The spark falls, and there is no fire, not because the fire has been fought down, but because there was never dry tinder for it to catch. Consider water, since water is the image the tradition loves for this. You may throw a burning brand into a pool, a torch, a whole armful of fire, and the water does not catch. It simply receives the fire, quenches it, and remains what it was, cool and still and clear. The fire cannot make the water burn. It is not the water's nature to burn. And a heart that has grown patient is like that pool. Provocations fall into it, harsh words, small injustices, the daily frictions that would set a dry heart ablaze, and they are simply received, quenched, absorbed into a coolness so deep that they cannot kindle it. This is not weakness. Water is not weak. It is one of the most powerful things there is, patient enough to wear down stone, and it does so precisely by never catching fire, never hardening, never losing its cool and yielding nature. Let us stay with a small story in this spirit, to feel how patience works in a living heart. In a monastery high in the cool mountains, there was a teacher known throughout the region for his patience, a patience so deep that those who came to test it, and many came to test it, for there is always someone who wishes to see a calm man lose his calm, could never find its end. And there was among the younger monks one who was quick to anger, who burned at every small friction, and who could not understand how the old teacher remained so cool. So one day the young monk resolved to provoke him, to find the edge of his patience, to see the fire he was sure must be hidden somewhere beneath that calm. And through a long day he tried everything. He was rude, he was insolent, he spilled the teacher's tea, he contradicted him before the others, he let the old man's sandals be lost, he spoke sharp words designed to wound, and through all of it the old teacher remained cool, not cold, not distant, but warmly, gently cool, meeting each provocation with the same unhurried ease as water meets a falling brand. At the end of the day, the young monk, exhausted and bewildered, came to the teacher and asked him, with real frustration, how he could remain so calm through so much provocation. Did he feel nothing? Was he made of stone? And the old teacher smiled and said, I am not made of stone. Stone is hard and can be broken. I am made of water. He said, when you threw your sparks at me today, they found nothing dry to catch. I have spent many years letting my heart grow cool and wide and wet, and now the sparks fall into it and simply go out. It is not that I fought your provocations. There was nothing to fight. It is that they fell into cool water, and cool water does not burn. And the young monk understood at last that patience was not the winning of a battle against anger, but the quiet ending of the war, the making of a heart so cool that the battle could no longer begin. This is the old story, and it points to the deep thing about patience, that it is cultivated, not summoned. You cannot, in the moment of provocation, suddenly become patient, any more than you can, in the moment the spark falls, suddenly make dry wood wet. The wetness must be there already, cultivated over time, so that when the spark comes, it finds a heart already cool. And this cultivation is the slow, quiet work of many ordinary moments. Each time we meet a small friction without catching fire, each time we let a minor provocation pass without kindling, each time we choose the cool response over the hot one, we are wetting the wood a little more, growing the heart a little cooler, a little wider, a little more like water and a little less like tinder. And over time, without our quite noticing, the heart that once caught fire at every spark becomes a heart that sparks fall into harmlessly quenched, unable to kindle what has grown so cool. Let us rest here for a moment and feel toward that coolness. Whatever has provoked you lately, whatever sparks have fallen on your heart, you might imagine them now falling into cool, still water and simply going out. You need not fight them. You need not press them down. You need only let your heart be, for these quiet hours, as wide and cool and still as a mountain pool at night, into which any falling fire is simply, quietly quenched. Take a slow, cool breath and feel the heart grow a little wider, a little cooler, a little more like water. When you are ready, we will go on together. There is a particular gift that patience gives, beyond the mere absence of anger, and it is worth naming, for it is one of the sweetest fruits of this practice. Patience gives us time. In the space between the provocation and our response, patience opens a small, cool, unhurried room, and in that room we are free. The impatient heart has no such room. Provocation and reaction are pressed right up against each other, spark and flame in the same instant, and there is no freedom in it, only the automatic catching of fire. But the patient heart, the cool, wide heart, has room to spare, and in that room it can choose. It can see the provocation clearly, understand where it came from, consider how to respond, and answer, if it answers at all, from coolness rather than from heat. This is a great freedom, perhaps the greatest freedom there is in the daily life of the heart. The freedom not to be dragged into fire by every spark the world throws. The freedom to remain oneself, cool and clear, whatever falls. And notice that this freedom harms no one and serves everyone. The patient one is not a doormat, not a coward, not someone who fails to act against wrong. On the contrary, the cool heart sees more clearly than the hot one, acts more wisely, speaks more effectively, for its words are not distorted by the heat of anger, but are chosen freely from clarity. When something truly must be addressed, the patient one addresses it better, precisely because they address it cool. The fire of anger, we imagine, gives us strength. In truth, it gives us only heat, and heat clouds the eyes and burns the tongue, and makes us do and say the things we later regret. The cool water of patience is the greater strength, the strength that sees clearly and acts wisely, and is never, afterward, ashamed of what the heat made it do. So as you lie here tonight, you might set the intention, gently, to grow a little cooler, a little more patient, not through effort or strain, but through this quiet cultivation, night after night, of a heart that lets sparks fall harmlessly into cool water. There is no rush in it. Patience, of all things, cannot be hurried into being. It grows slowly, like water gathering in a mountain pool, drop by drop, moment by moment, until one day the pool is deep and wide and cool, and the fires that once would have caught it simply fall in and go out, and you will find, as that coolness deepens, that the world provokes you less, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The same sparks fall and find nothing to catch, and the heart remains, through all of it, cool and clear and free. Let the breath be cool now, cool and slow and deep, like water gathering quietly in a still pool through the long night. Let each cool breath widen the pool a little, deepen it a little, until your whole heart feels like cool, still water in the dark, into which nothing burning can fall without being quenched. There is no fire in you now, no spark that can catch, only the deep, cool, quiet water of a patient heart, still and clear beneath the night, ready to quench whatever falls. Rest in that cool water. Let it hold you, cool and quiet and unburning, and carry you gently down towards sleep. And should the old heat rise again tomorrow, should some spark find a patch still dry and catch for a moment, you need not be discouraged. You will simply wet that patch too, in time, cool it, widen the pool a little further, until even that dry corner of the heart has grown cool and wet and safe from fire. This is the slow, patient, lifelong growing of a cool heart, and there is no failure in it, only the endless, gentle, unhurried deepening of the pool. Drop by drop the water gathers. Moment by moment the heart grows cool, and the fires that once ruled you burn lower and lower, quenched again and again by a patience that only deepens with the years, until the cool water is so wide and so deep that you can scarcely remember what it was to burn. It helps, too, to see what patience is guarding us against. For anger, when it is quick, does a particular kind of damage that patience alone can prevent. The quick anger, the anger that catches like dry tinder at the smallest spark, speaks before it thinks, acts before it sees, and in a single hot moment it can undo what years of care have built. A harsh word said in the heat of anger cannot be unsaid. It lands and it wounds, and the wound remains long after the fire that spoke it has died down. A door slammed, a message sent, a blow struck, a bond broken in the heat of a single moment. These are the works of quick anger, and they are rarely, if ever, the works we would have chosen from a cool and quiet heart. And so patience guards us not only from our own suffering, from the burning of our own hearts, but from the harm we would do to others and to the things we love, in the hot and heedless moments when the fire speaks through us. The patient heart says nothing it must later take back, does nothing it must later mend, breaks nothing it must later grieve. It waits, cool, until the heat has passed, and then, from clarity, it chooses. There is an old counsel, plain and practical, that the traditions offer for cultivating this cool waiting, and it is worth carrying with you. When the anger rises, wait. Simply wait. Do not act, do not speak, do not send or say or strike. Only wait and breathe, and let a little time pass, for anger, like all weather, passes, and the heart that was hot a moment ago will, if only it waits, grow cool again and see clearly again, and be glad it did nothing in the heat. The old teachers counted breaths. They counted slow breaths, 10 of them, before responding to what had provoked them, knowing that in the space of 10 slow breaths, the first hot surge of anger would crest and begin to fall, and that whatever they chose to do after those 10 breaths would be chosen by a cooler, clearer heart than the one that first caught fire. And this is a practice you may carry into your days. When the spark falls and the heat begins to rise, wait, breathe, count if it helps, and let the cool water gather before you act. You will rarely, if ever, regret what you did after waiting. It is what we do in the first hot instant before the water gathers that we live to regret. And so patience is, in the end, a kind of trust, a trust that the heat will pass if only we do not act on it, a trust that the cool water will gather if only we give it time, a trust that the clear and quiet heart beneath the momentary fire is our truer self and will return to us if only we wait. The impatient heart does not trust this. It believes the fire must be acted on now, that the anger is urgent, that the spark demands an immediate flame. But the patient heart knows better. It knows that almost nothing the anger demands is truly urgent, that almost everything can wait for the cool water to gather, and that what waits is almost always better done or better left undone than what the fire would have rushed us into. So trust the cool water tonight and trust it tomorrow, and let the heat, whenever it rises, simply wait and pass and leave you cool. We have grown the heart cool now, wide and still as water, so that the sparks of provocation fall into it and go out. But there is something that deepens this coolness even further, something that reaches into the very source of anger and softens it from within. It is understanding, the deep seeing into why others do as they do, which melts our anger the way warm light melts frost. So let us turn now gently to that softening understanding. There is a quiet truth about anger that, once we truly see it, changes everything. And it is this: almost no one who wrongs us does so out of pure malice, out of a simple wish to cause us pain. Almost always, when we look closely, beneath the harsh word, or the careless act, or the injury done to us, there is something else, something more human and more sorrowful than malice. There is pain of their own, fear of their own, some wound or fatigue or fear or old hurt of their own that drove them to do the thing that hurt us. And when we truly see this, when we understand the pain behind the act, Our anger softens, almost against our will, the way frost softens and melts in the warmth of the morning sun. For it is very hard to stay angry at someone once you truly understand why they did what they did, once you see the suffering behind their action, once you recognize that the one who hurt you was, in that moment, themselves in some kind of pain. Let us understand this carefully, for it is easily misheard, and the mishearing robs it of its power. To understand why someone hurt us is not to excuse what they did, not to say it was right, not to pretend it did not hurt, not to invite them to hurt us again. Understanding is not the same as approval, and it is not the same as opening ourselves to further harm. We may understand perfectly why someone did a hurtful thing and still hold that it was wrong, still protect ourselves from its repetition, still ask for it to be made right. Understanding does not touch any of that. What understanding touches is only our anger, the fire in our own heart, and it softens that fire, cools it, melts it, by replacing the story of malice, the story that keeps us burning, with the truer and sadder story of another human being in pain. We can be safe and understanding at once. We can hold a boundary and hold compassion at once. Understanding takes nothing from our protection. It takes only from our burning. Consider how differently we feel when we know the reason behind the hurt. If a stranger shoves past us in the street, roughly, rudely, without a word, the fire rises at once. How dare they? What right have they? The anger catches like dry tinder. But if we then see that the stranger is rushing, white-faced, toward a child who has fallen, or toward some emergency we had not seen, the anger vanishes in an instant, melted entirely, replaced by understanding, even by concern. Nothing about the shove has changed. It was just as rough, just as wordless. What has changed is only our understanding of why, and that alone was enough to melt the whole fire away. And the deep teaching here is that there is almost always such a reason, such a why, behind every hurt, even when we cannot see it, even when the one who hurt us is rushing towards some fallen child of their own that we know nothing of, some pain or fear or old wound that drove them invisibly to us to do the thing that hurt. Let us stay with a small story in this spirit. There was once a man who kept a garden, and each morning he found that someone had been trampling his flowers in the night, breaking the stems, ruining the blooms he had tended so carefully. And each morning his anger grew until he burned with it, imagining some cruel and careless person destroying his garden out of spite, and he resolved to catch this vandal and confront him and pour out all his fury upon him. So one night he waited, hidden, watching, his anger hot and ready, and in the small hours he saw a figure come into the garden, and he rose to confront it, and then he saw in the moonlight that it was an old man from the village, one who had lost his sight, and who wandered in the night not knowing where he was, confused and frightened, stumbling through the flowers he could not see, lost and afraid in the dark. And in that instant all the gardener's anger melted, entirely, replaced by pity, by tenderness, by understanding, and instead of the fury he had prepared, he went gently to the old man and took his arm and led him softly home. The flowers were just as broken as they had been the morning before, but the fire in the gardener's heart was wholly gone, melted by understanding the moment he saw the truth of why. This is the old story, and it points to the deep thing, that our anger is almost always built on a story of malice, a story in which the one who hurt us did so out of cruelty, out of carelessness, out of a wish to harm, and that this story is almost always false, or at least incomplete, and that when we replace it with a truer story, the story of the pain or fear or blindness behind the act, the anger melts, because anger cannot easily survive true understanding. We stay angry in large part by not understanding, by holding fast to the story of malice, by refusing to see the wound behind the wound. And the practice of understanding is simply the willingness to look for that truer story, to ask gently, what pain might have driven this, what fear, what wound, what old hurt, and to let the answer, even when we cannot know it for certain, soften the fire in our own heart. Let us rest here for a moment and let understanding do its gentle work. Whoever has hurt you, whatever the wrong that still burns in you tonight, you might consider gently that behind their act there was very likely some pain of their own, some fear, some wound, some old hurt driving them, that they too, in the moment they hurt you, were in some kind of suffering, as all who cause harm are suffering. You need not excuse them. You need only understand them, and let the understanding soften your own fire. Take a slow, warm breath and feel how the anger loosens a little when you see the hurt person behind the hurtful act. When you are ready, we will go on together. There is a particular understanding that softens anger more than any other, and it is this, that the one who wronged us was, almost always, acting out of their own suffering, and that hurt people, as the simple saying goes. The one who lashes out in cruelty is almost always one who has been treated cruelly, carrying an old wound that they pass on without meaning to whoever is near. The one who is careless of our feelings is often one whose own feelings were never cared for. The one who is quick to anger is often one who lives in fear. And when we see this chain of pain, this long inheritance of hurt, passed from one wounded heart to the next, our anger at any single link in the chain softens into something more like sorrow, a sorrow for the whole sad human situation, in which pain begets pain and wound passes to wound, and in which the one who hurt us is not a villain but simply another link, another wounded one passing on a wound they never asked to carry. And from that sorrow, that understanding, forgiveness becomes not a duty we force ourselves to perform, but a natural softening of the heart, a letting go that happens almost on its own once we truly see. And notice that this understanding brings a strange and welcome freedom, for it takes the wrong done to us out of the realm of the personal, where it burns hottest. When we believe that someone hurt us on purpose, out of malice aimed at us, particularly, the wound is personal, and it burns. It says something about our worth, our safety, our place in the world. But when we understand that they acted out of their own pain, that they would have hurt whoever was near, that it was never really about us at all, but about the wound they carried, the hurt becomes less personal and burns less. We were not singled out. We were simply near. The lightning that struck us was not aimed at us. We merely stood beneath a sky that was going to loose its lightning at whoever was there. And there is a strange comfort in this, a cooling of the fire, for what is not personal wounds less, and what we understand cannot easily keep us burning. So as you lie here tonight, you might turn the light of understanding gently on whatever wrong still burns in you, and look for the pain behind it, the fear, the wound, the old hurt, the suffering of the one who hurt you. You may not find it for certain, You cannot see into another heart, but you may find enough in the mere willingness to look, to soften your own fire, to melt a little of the frost of anger in the warmth of understanding, to see the hurt human being where before you saw only the hurtful act. And as the understanding grows, the anger shrinks, not through force, not through effort, but through the simple, natural softening of a heart that has begun to see. Let the breath be warm and soft now, warm as morning light on frost, and with each warm breath, let a little more of the anger melt, a little more of the hardness soften, a little more of the story of malice give way to the truer, sadder, gentler story of another human being in pain. There is no one to hate tonight, only wounded ones, hurting and being hurt, passing pain along a chain none of them chose. And there is nothing to do about it now but understand and soften, and let the warmth of understanding melt the last of the frost from your heart. Rest in that warm understanding. Let it soften you and melt you and carry you gently down towards sleep. And if the old anger hardens again tomorrow, if the story of malice returns and the frost creeps back over the heart, you need only turn the warm light of understanding on it once more and ask again what pain lay behind the hurt, and let the answer, or even the mere asking, soften you again. This is the gentle, endless work of understanding, melting the frost of anger again and again in the warmth of seeing, until the heart grows so practiced in understanding that the frost can scarcely form at all, and the warmth becomes its natural weather, and you meet even those who hurt you with a softness that sees always the wounded human being behind the wound. It is worth pausing too, on our own part in this, gently and without self-blame, for understanding softens the heart in both directions. Just as those who hurt us act out of their own pain, so too do we, on our own hard days, hurt others out of ours. There is no one who has not, in some tired or frightened or wounded moment, spoken sharply to someone who did not deserve it, or acted carelessly of another's feelings, or passed along a hurt they were carrying. We are all of us, on our worst days, the very person we are tempted to hate on our best. We are all links in the same long chain of hurt passed along. And when we remember this, when we recall our own moments of causing pain, and how we longed afterward to be understood rather than condemned, to have someone see the tiredness or fear behind our sharpness rather than simply the sharpness itself, we find it easier to offer that same understanding to the one who hurt us. We ask of them only what we ourselves have needed, to be seen as a whole and struggling human being, and not reduced to our worst moment. And in offering that understanding, we soften not only toward them, but toward ourselves, toward the whole imperfect, wounded, struggling human family to which we all belong. There is a deep and steadying peace in this recognition, the peace of no longer standing in judgment, for anger sets us up as judges, and judging is a heavy and restless seat. It requires us to hold the other as guilty, to keep the case open, to remember the charges, to tend the fire of our condemnation. And understanding lets us step down from that seat, lay down the case, close the file, not because justice does not matter, but because we see that we are not fit to be anyone's final judge, that we do not know the whole of another's heart, that we ourselves would not survive the kind of judgment we are tempted to pass on others. And in stepping down from the seat of judgment, we lay down a great weight, the weight of holding another guilty, and the heart, relieved of that weight, grows lighter, softer, cooler, freer. It is a great relief to stop judging. It is a great rest to lay the gavel down and simply understand. So let the light of understanding spread now, gently, over everyone your anger has touched, the one who hurt you and yourself, and the whole long chain of wounded ones passing pain along. See them all, tonight, not as villains, but as struggling human beings, each carrying some wound, each doing their flawed best, each deserving, in the end, of the same understanding you would wish for yourself on your own hardest day. And let that wide understanding soften the whole landscape of your heart, melting the frost not just from one wrong, but from all of them, until there is no one left to hate, no one left to judge, only a wide and gentle field of understanding, warm and soft and quiet in the night, in which anger cannot easily take root, and in which the heart can finally rest. We have let understanding soften the heart now, melting the frost of anger in the warm light of seeing the wounded human being behind every wound. But there remains one final movement, the deepest of all, the one toward which all the others have been quietly leading. It is forgiveness, the laying down of the grudge, not for the sake of the one who wronged us, but for our own sake, our own freedom, our own peace. So let us turn now, gently and slowly, to that final and freeing letting go. There is a great misunderstanding about forgiveness, one that keeps many people bound to their anger for years, and it is worth clearing away gently, here in the quiet of the night, before we go any further. The misunderstanding is this, that forgiveness is something we do for the one who wronged us, a gift we give them, a letting them off, a saying that what they did was acceptable after all. And because we feel, rightly, that what they did was not acceptable, that they do not deserve to be let off, we refuse to forgive, believing that to forgive would be to betray ourselves, to excuse the wrong, to hand a gift to someone who does not deserve it. And so we hold on to our anger, thinking we are holding on to justice, thinking our refusal to forgive somehow punishes the one who hurt us. But it does not. It punishes only ourselves. For here is the truth about forgiveness that changes everything, once we truly see it. Forgiveness is not a gift we give to the one who wronged us. It is a gift we give to ourselves. It is the setting down of a weight we have been carrying, a weight that burdens only us. The weight of the grudge, the weight of the anger, the weight of the old wrong carried through the years. The one who wronged us very often feels nothing of this weight. They may have forgotten the whole thing, maybe sleeping soundly, maybe living their life untroubled while we lie awake burning. Our grudge does not touch them. It touches only us. It is a fire we carry in our own chest, believing we are aiming it at them, when in truth it burns only the one who carries it. And to forgive is simply to set that fire down, to put out that flame, to lay down that weight, not for their sake, but for our own freedom, our own peace, our own rest. Let us understand this clearly, for it is the heart of the whole matter. To forgive does not mean to say that what was done was right. It does not mean to forget, or to pretend it did not happen, or to invite the wrongdoer back into our trust, or to abandon the boundaries that keep us safe. Forgiveness touches none of that. We may forgive and still hold that the wrong was wrong. We may forgive and still remember. We may forgive and still keep our distance, still protect ourselves, still never let the person near us again. Forgiveness is not about them at all, not about what they did or deserve or will do next. Forgiveness is entirely about us, about our own heart, about whether we will keep carrying the fire or set it down. It is the inner act of releasing our own grip on the grudge, of unclenching the hand that has been holding the hot coal, of choosing our own freedom over the bitter satisfaction of a grievance nursed. Let us return, for a moment, to the image we touched on earlier in our long night together, the image of the hot coal, for it belongs most fully here. Holding on to anger, the old teaching says, is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned, and this is exactly the nature of the grudge. We hold the hot coal of our anger, meaning to hurl it at the one who wronged us, meaning to make them feel what we feel, to make them pay, to make the coal burn them. But the coal is in our hand. It burns our hand, our palm, our fingers, all the while we hold it, and the one we mean to throw it at is far away, untouched, unburned, perhaps not even aware that we are holding a coal at all. And forgiveness is simply this: the opening of the hand, the letting the coal fall, the setting down of the burning thing we have been clutching, so that our own hand at last can begin to heal. It is not a gift to the person we meant to throw it at. It is mercy to our own burned hand. Let us stay with a small story in this spirit. There were two friends who had been imprisoned together long ago in hard conditions, treated cruelly by their captors, and after many years both were released and went their separate ways and lived out their lives. And many years later they met again, two old men now, and they spoke of the past, of the prison, of the cruelty they had suffered. And one asked the other, "Have you forgiven them, our captors, for what they did to us?" And the second man said, "No, never. I will never forgive them, not as long as I live." And the first man was quiet for a while, and then he said gently, "Then it seems they still have you in prison, even now." For the second man, all these years later, was still bound, still held, still suffering the cruelty of his captors, not because they still held him. They were long gone, long dead perhaps, but because he still held them, still clutched the grudge, still carried the prison inside him wherever he went. And the first man, who had set it down, who had forgiven, not for his captor's sake but for his own, walked free, truly free, in a way the second man, still gripping his old anger, had never managed to be. This is the old story, and it points to the deepest truth about the grudge, that the one who holds it is the one it holds. The grudge does not imprison the one we hold it against. It imprisons us. We become the jailer who cannot leave the prison, because to guard our prisoner, we must stay in the cell with them, must stay bound to the very wrong we can never forget, must carry our captor with us wherever we go, for as long as we refuse to let them go. And forgiveness is simply the opening of that cell from the inside and the walking free, leaving the old wrong behind at last, not because it did not happen, not because it did not matter, but because we no longer wish to spend our one life imprisoned with it. We forgive to walk free. We forgive to set ourselves down. We forgive because the one we have truly been holding captive all along was ourselves. Let us rest here for a moment and feel toward that freedom. Whatever grudge you have carried, whatever old wrong you have held against someone through the months or years, you might consider gently that the weight of it has fallen on you, not them, that the fire of it has burned your hand, not theirs, that the prison of it has held you, not them. And you might feel, just for a moment, how it would be to set it down, to open the hand, to walk free, not for their sake, but for your own. You need do nothing yet. Only feel the possibility of that freedom, the lightness of a hand no longer gripping, a heart no longer burning, a self no longer imprisoned with an old wrong. Take a slow, releasing breath. When you are ready, we will go on together. Notice that forgiveness, understood this way, asks nothing of the one who wronged us. It does not wait for their apology. It does not require their remorse. It does not depend on their changing or understanding or ever knowing that we have forgiven them at all. This is a great liberation, for if our freedom depended on their apology, we might wait forever. Many who wrong us never apologize, never feel remorse, never give us the acknowledgement we long for, and if we make our peace hostage to their repentance, we may never find peace at all. But forgiveness, rightly understood, needs none of that. It is entirely within our own power, entirely our own act, entirely our own choice to set down our own fire, whatever the other person does or does not do. They need not participate. They need not even know. Our freedom is ours to give ourselves, and no one, not even the one who wronged us, can withhold it from us once we understand that it was ours to give all along. And notice, too, that forgiveness is often not a single act but a practice, a thing we do not once but many times. For the grudge, once set down, has a way of being picked up again. The coal, once dropped, a way of finding its way back into the hand. We forgive and feel free, and then some reminder comes, some memory, some fresh sting, and the old anger returns, and we find ourselves gripping the coal once more. And this is not failure. It is simply the nature of the practice. We forgive again. We set it down again. We open the hand again, as many times as it takes. And each time the grip is a little looser, the coal a little cooler, the setting down a little easier, until at last the day comes when we reach for the old grudge and find that it is simply not there anymore, that we have set it down so many times that it has finally stayed down, and the hand, long burned, has finally, fully healed. So as you lie here tonight, you might begin, gently, to set down whatever you have been carrying, not all at once, not by force, but simply by loosening your grip a little, opening your hand a little, letting the old coal cool a little in your palm. You need not decide anything grand tonight. You need only feel, for these quiet hours, how much lighter you are when the hand is open, how much cooler when the coal is set down, how much freer when the old prisoner, who was always yourself, is finally let go, and you might let that lightness, that coolness, that freedom be the feeling that carries you down towards sleep, the feeling of a burden long carried finally set down, a fire long held finally released, a self long imprisoned finally gently, walking free. Let the hand be open now, soft and open in the dark. The old coal set down, the palm cooling, the burn beginning at last to heal. Let the breath be slow and free, the breath of one no longer gripping, no longer burning, no longer bound. There is nothing you must hold tonight, no grudge you must guard, no fire you must carry, no prisoner you must keep. Only an open hand, a cooling heart, a freed and lightened self, resting in the quiet dark. Let the freedom hold you now, the deep and simple freedom of the forgiven and the forgiving, and let it carry you gently down towards sleep. And if tomorrow you find the coal back in your hand, the old grudge picked up again without your quite meaning to, you need not be discouraged. You will simply open the hand again and set it down again, gently, as many times as it takes, knowing now that each setting down is real, each opening of the hand a true freedom, and that the practice, repeated patiently over the days and the weeks and the years, will one day leave your hand fully open and fully healed, and the old fire so long carried, finally and forever out. There is one more turn of this teaching worth resting in, the tenderest of all, and it is forgiveness turned toward ourselves. For often the person we find hardest to forgive is not the one who wronged us, but the one we see in the mirror. We carry grudges against ourselves, old and heavy ones, for the things we have done, the people we have hurt, the mistakes we have made, the harm we caused in our own tired or frightened or angry moments. And we hold the hot coal against ourselves, gripping it year after year, burning our own hand with our own self-blame, imprisoning ourselves in the cell of our old regrets, refusing ourselves the very forgiveness we might in time extend to others. And this self-directed grudge is perhaps the heaviest of all, for we can never walk away from ourselves, never get distance from the one we will not forgive, but must carry them and the coal with us every moment of every day. And so the practice of forgiveness turns, at last, most gently of all, toward the self. We open the hand that has been gripping the coal of self-blame. We let ourselves down from the seat of judgment on which we have kept ourselves so long. We offer ourselves the same understanding we have learned to offer others, seeing that we too acted out of our own pain, our own fear, our own wounds, that we too were doing our flawed best with what we had, that we too are simply another struggling human being deserving of mercy. And we forgive ourselves, not to excuse what we did, not to pretend it did not matter, but to set down at last the weight we were never meant to carry forever, to unclench the hand, to walk free of the prison of our own regret, to let the long self-punishment finally end. For we cannot rest while we are still burning ourselves, and the fire of self-blame, like every other fire, goes out only when we stop, at last, feeding it, and open the hand, and let it fall. So tonight, gently, you might forgive not only whoever wronged you, but also yourself, for whatever you have held against yourself so long. You might open that hand too, and let that coal fall too, and offer yourself the mercy you have perhaps withheld for years. You are, like everyone, a wounded one who has caused wounds, a flawed one doing your best, a human being deserving, as all are, of understanding and forgiveness and rest. So set yourself free tonight, along with everyone else your anger has held. Let the whole of it go, the grudges against others and the grudges against yourself, and rest at last with an open hand and a forgiven heart in the deep and simple freedom of one who has finally set the whole burden down. We have come now to the laying down of the last and heaviest weight, the grudge itself, forgiven and released, for others and for ourselves alike. All that remains is to rest in the coolness this letting go has opened, the deep and quiet peace of a heart no longer burning. So let us turn gently toward that final rest, the cool and quiet heart, and let it carry us the rest of the way down into sleep. And so we come, at the end of our long night together, to the place all of this has been quietly leading, the cool and quiet heart, the heart from which the fire of anger has finally gone, leaving only stillness, only coolness, only the deep and settled peace of a night with no storm in it. We have watched the heat we carry to bed, and understood the empty boat, and felt the coal burn only the hand that held it, and set the grudge down, and seen that anger is only weather, and learned to stop feeding the fire, and grown the heart cool as water with patience, and let understanding soften us, and forgiven at last for others and for ourselves. And now there is nothing left to do, nothing left to practice, nothing left to set down. There is only this, to rest in the coolness all that letting go has opened, and to let it carry us the rest of the way into sleep. Feel, if you can, how different this coolness is from the heat we began with so many quiet hours ago. We came to this night perhaps, carrying a fire, some anger from the day or the year, some old wrong still burning, some grudge still gripped, some heat still glowing in the chest, and one by one, gently, without force, we have let the fuel of that fire fall away, until the flames, unfed, have sunk to embers, and the embers to cool grey ash, and now there is only the cool, quiet hearth, the fire spent, the heat gone, the deep and settled peace of a heart that is no longer burning. This is the coolness the tradition prizes, the coolness the whole long path of letting go leads toward. Not a coldness, not a numbness, not an absence of feeling, but a deep and gentle coolness, warm in its own quiet way, the coolness of still water, of night air, of a heart at peace. There is a stillness that comes to our heart when its fires go out, and it is worth resting in fully now on this last stretch of the night. It is the stillness of a lake at the end of the day, when the wind has finally dropped and the surface, troubled all day by the weather, grows perfectly smooth, perfectly still, a dark and quiet mirror holding the moon. All day the lake was ruffled, stirred, broken into countless restless waves by the winds of provocation and grievance and heat. And now, in the deep quiet of the night, the wind has gone, and the lake has grown still, so still that it holds the whole sky unbroken, so quiet that not a ripple stirs its surface. And your own heart, when the fires of anger have finally gone out, grows just this still, a dark and quiet mirror, smooth and unruffled, holding the peace of the night without a single ripple of the old heat to break it. Let your heart be that still lake now. Let it grow smooth and quiet and deep, all its storms past, all its winds dropped, holding only the still and peaceful dark. You do not need to remember any of this in the morning. There is nothing here to study, nothing to hold on to, nothing to carry forward except perhaps the faint memory of how it felt to set a fire down and grow cool. The teachings we walked through tonight were never meant to be memorized. They were meant to be felt once, softly, in the dark, and then released, like everything else, into the quiet. If some image stays with you, the empty boat, the hot coal, the cool water, the open hand, let it stay, and let it help you, gently, on some future night when the old heat returns. And if none of it stays, that is well too, for the coolness it opened in you tonight is the only thing that mattered, and that coolness needs no remembering. It is simply there, in the stilled heart, doing its quiet work, whether you recall its name or not. Let us rest now, fully, in the cool and quiet heart. There is no fire left to tend, no coal left to hold, no grudge left to guard, no wrong left to rehearse, no anger left to feed. All of it has been set down, gently, over this long night, and all that remains is the coolness, the stillness, the deep and settled peace of a heart with no storm in it. Let your body be heavy now, sinking into the bed, held and supported, nothing to hold, nothing to carry. Let your breath be slow and cool, moving softly on its own, Each breath a little slower, a little deeper, a little further into rest. Let the last warmth of any old anger fade entirely from the chest, replaced by the cool, quiet peace of the stilled lake, the spent hearth, the open hand, the forgiven and forgiving heart. If some small heat should stir again, even now, some last ember of an old wrong glowing faintly in the dark, you need not be troubled by it, need not fight it, need not feed it. Only let it be and let it cool, watching it fade the way the last ember of a fire fades in the small hours, glowing, dimming, greying, going out. It cannot burn without your feeding, and tonight you are feeding nothing, only breathing, only resting, only sinking gently down towards sleep. So let the last ember cool and fade, unfed, until there is only the cool grey ash of a fire long out, and the deep quiet of the night, and the soft and heavy peace of a body and a heart at rest. Feel how light you are now, with the fire set down. The anger we carry is heavy, though we rarely feel its weight until we set it down. It is a burden borne in the shoulders and the jaw and the chest, a constant low labour of the heart, and when at last it is released, the lightness is extraordinary, the lightness of a load long carried finally laid down. Feel that lightness now, spreading through you, the shoulders softening, the jaw loosening, the chest opening, the whole body growing light and easy as the weight of the old anger lifts and floats away into the dark. There is nothing to carry now, nothing to hold, nothing to guard or feed or tend, only lightness and coolness and stillness, and the deep, gentle drift towards sleep. Let the breath grow slower still and cooler still, each one carrying you a little further down, a little deeper into the quiet. The lake is still, the hearth is cool, the hand is open, the heart is at peace. Whatever fire you brought to this night has gone out gently over these long quiet hours and left you cool and light and free, resting in the deep and settled peace of a heart with no anger left in it. There is nowhere to go now, nothing to do, no one to forgive that you have not forgiven, no fire to tend that has not gone cool. There is only rest, deep and cool and quiet, and the soft dark of the night, and sleep, coming gently now to carry you the rest of the way. Rest now. Let the cool and quiet heart hold you. Let the stilled lake, the cooled hearth, the open hand, the forgiven heart, all of it hold you now, soft and cool and light in the dark. Let each slow breath carry you deeper, until the breathing itself grows faint and far away, and there is only the coolness, only the quiet, only the deep and gentle dark. You have set the fire down. You are cool now, and light and free. Let sleep come. Let it take you softly, all the way down into the deep and cool and quiet dark. Rest, rest now, and sleep. Let us linger a while longer in this coolness, for there is no hurry now, and the night is wide and quiet around us. Think, if you like, of how a summer's day cools into night, the way the fierce heat of the afternoon, which seemed at midday as though it would never break, softens as the sun lowers and eases as the light goes gold, and finally gives way entirely to the cool of the evening, the cool of the deep night, the blessed coolness after the heat. The heat did not last. It never does. However fierce the day, the cool of the night always comes, always follows, always arrives to soothe what the heat had scorched. And the fires of anger are just the same. However fierce they burn, the cool always comes, if only we let it, if only we stop feeding the flames and let the natural coolness of the settled heart arrive. You are in that cool of the evening now, the long heat of the day finally broken, the cool of the night arriving at last, soothing everything the old heat had scorched, settling everything the old fire had stirred. And there is a kindness in this coolness, a gentleness the heat never had. For anger, whatever it promises, is never kind, not to others, and least of all to ourselves. It is a hard and driving heat that scorches whatever it touches, including the one who carries it. But the coolness that comes when the anger goes out is kind, deeply kind, kind to everyone it touches, and kindest of all to ourselves. It is the kindness of a heart that has stopped burning itself, stopped punishing itself, stopped carrying the hot coal that only ever burned its own hand. And in this kindness, this cool and gentle mercy toward yourself, you may rest most deeply of all, knowing that you have tonight been kind to yourself in the truest way, by setting down the fire that was only ever hurting you, and letting the cool, kind peace of the quiet heart arrive at last. So carry nothing forward now, not even these words. Let them go, like everything else, into the quiet. Let the whole long night, all its teachings and images and gentle turnings, dissolve now into the simple fact of your rest, your breath, your body sinking heavy and cool into the bed, your heart quiet and still and free. You came to this night carrying a fire, and you are leaving it cool. You came holding a coal, and you are leaving with an open hand. You came bound to some old wrong, and you are leaving free. That is enough. That is more than enough. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to understand, nothing more to release. There is only rest now, deep and cool and complete. There is a peace here at the end that is worth resting in slowly, unhurried, for as long as the night allows. It is the peace of nothing owed and nothing held, the peace of a heart that has laid down every grievance and picked up nothing in their place. Notice how quiet the mind becomes when it is no longer rehearsing some old wrong, no longer building its case, no longer tending its fire. How much room there is in a heart when the anger is gone from it, how much space, how much stillness. All the energy that anger took, the constant low labor of keeping the fire lit, of holding the grudge, of guarding the wound, is yours again now, returned to you, free to become rest. Feel that returned energy settling gently through you, no longer spent on burning, no longer poured into the flames, but pooling quietly into the deep still water of a heart at last at peace. And if you listen, beneath the quiet, there is something almost like sweetness in this coolness, the sweetness of relief, the sweetness of a long strain finally ended. For we do not always know how tired the anger was making us until we set it down. We grow so used to carrying the fire that its heat becomes the background of our days, and only when it finally goes out do we feel, by contrast, how deeply cool and restful its absence is. You are feeling that now, perhaps, the sweet relief of a fire long carried finally out, a strain long borne finally eased, a heart long burning finally, blessedly cool. Rest in that sweetness. Let it spread through you, soft and gentle, the sweet deep relief of anger finally set down, and let it carry you further still towards sleep. Let the images of the night return one last time, softly, and then let them go. The empty boat, drifting on the mist, no one aboard to blame. The hot coal, set down at last, the hand cooling, healing. The summer storm, blown through and gone, the sky wide and clear behind it. The fire, unfed, sinking to cool grey ash. The still lake at nightfall, smooth and quiet, holding the moon. The open hand, the forgiven heart. Let them drift through you once more, these gentle pictures of a letting go, and then let them dissolve, like mist at dawn, into the simple dark, into the simple quiet, into the simple fact of your rest. You need hold none of them. You need hold nothing at all. There is only the breath now, slow and soft and cool, and the body heavy and easy and still, and the heart quiet and cool and free, sinking gently down towards sleep. The night will hold you now. The dark is soft and cool and kind, and it asks nothing of you, only that you rest within it, cool and quiet and free. Let it hold you gently and completely, the way the deep night holds a quiet lake. Let the still lake hold you, and the cooled hearth, and the open hand, and the forgiven and forgiving heart, and the cool, wide water of the patient heart that no fire can catch. Let the coolness hold you, all the way down into sleep. There is nothing left to carry. There is nothing left to feed. There is only the deep and gentle dark, and the slow, soft breath, and the cool and quiet heart, drifting now, easily, gently, all the way down into rest. Sleep now. Let it come. There is nothing to keep you from it. No fire still burning, no wrong still held, no weight still borne. Only the cool and quiet dark, and the slow, soft breath, and the deep peace of a heart that has set everything down. Let it carry you softly, all the way down, into the deep and cool and quiet dark. Rest. Rest now, and sleep.